This title is presented to you by Soundlibra.com. For more audiobooks like this, click the link in the description or visit our website at Soundlibra.com. Welcome to the Micro Habit Revolution. Today, we ignite the spark of transformational change.
And welcome, everyone. I'm Lisa. Real quick before we jump in, just a reminder that while we're discussing health and wellness habits, this is for informational purposes and isn't medical advice. Definitely consult a professional for your specific needs.
Great point. Now, I'm Alex, and we're so excited to embark on this journey with you. This is episode 1, where we introduce the core idea, the incredible power of micro habits for massive, lasting change.
So, Alex, when we talk about micro habits, what exactly are we referring to? It sounds intriguing, but also perhaps a little too simple.
That's a great question, Lisa, and it touches on why so many people struggle with building new habits. A micro habit is essentially a habit that's so small, so incredibly easy to do, that you can't say no to it. Think of it as a tiny, almost insignificant action that you perform consistently. Think of a massive stone cathedral. It wasn't built in a day by moving one giant mountain. It was built by placing one small, manageable brick at a time. A micro habit is that single brick.
Insignificant? But aren't habits supposed to be, well, significant? Like going to the gym for an hour or meditating for 20 minutes.
Exactly. That's the traditional approach, and it's where things often go wrong. We set these huge, ambitious goals, and despite our best intentions, we can't sustain them. Why? Because big changes require a lot of motivation, discipline, and willpower. And those resources are finite. They run out. Imagine your willpower is like a battery in your phone. If you run high-intensity apps all day, like trying to force yourself through a grueling 2-hour workout when you're exhausted, that battery hits zero fast.
So it's not about a lack of willpower on our part, but perhaps the wrong strategy?
Precisely. Micro habits are designed to bypass the need for massive motivation. They're so small, they require almost no willpower. They are low-energy apps for your brain. The goal isn't to achieve a significant outcome immediately, but to build the habit of taking action. We are focusing on the showing up part of the equation.
Can you give us an example? Something to really picture this.
Absolutely. Let's say you want to start flossing your teeth regularly. The traditional advice is to floss all your teeth every night. That can feel like a chore, right?
Definitely. And on a tired evening, it's the first thing to get skipped.
Right. Now, what if your micro habit is to floss just one tooth?
One tooth. That sounds almost silly.
Exactly. But think about it. Can you convince yourself to floss just one tooth? Of course you can. It takes seconds. There's no resistance. What happens though? You've now performed the action of flossing. You've created a trigger, brushing your teeth, and attached a tiny behavior to it. And often, once you floss that one tooth, you might find yourself flossing a few more, or even all of them. But even if you only do the one, you've won for the day.
So, the initial goal isn't to get perfectly clean teeth from that one floss, but to establish the process of flossing.
You've got it. The micro habit is the gateway. It's the tiny spark that ignites the bigger fire. We're not aiming for an immediate epic transformation. We're aiming for consistent, tiny actions that, over time, compound into significant results. Think of it like compound interest in a savings account. A few cents today doesn't seem like much, but over years, it becomes a fortune.
This really challenges the common wisdom. We're told to think big, to aim high. But you're saying we should start incredibly small.
Yes, because the real revolution isn't in the size of the habit. It's in the reliability of its execution. Traditional habit advice often fails for a simple reason. It asks too much, too soon. We set ourselves up for failure, leading to frustration and giving up. Micro habits are designed for success. They're built on the principle that starting is the hardest part. And if you can make starting ridiculously easy, you'll start. It is much easier to steer a car that is already moving than one that is parked.
And if you start, you create momentum.
Exactly. Momentum is key. Now, this concept of micro habits is foundational. Throughout this series, we'll explore the powerful principles that support it. We've already touched on the idea of making habits incredibly easy, but we'll also dive deep into making them obvious, attractive, and satisfying. To help you remember, we can think of these as the four pillars of the revolution: making it tiny, making it linked, making it consistent, and making it celebrated.
So, it's not just about making them small, but also about how we can integrate them into our lives effectively.
Precisely. We'll talk about the 2-minute rule, how to shrink any habit down so it takes less than that amount of time. We'll explore trigger linking, which is about attaching new habits to things you already do automatically.
Like linking that one floss habit to brushing your teeth, which we already do. That's the trigger linking you mentioned, right?
Indeed, it's like hitching a small trailer to a truck that's already driving down the highway. The truck is your old habit, and the trailer is the new one. We'll also demystify the motivation myth, emphasizing consistency over fleeting enthusiasm. You'll learn about celebration stations, rewarding yourself for completing your micro habits, no matter how small. And we'll guide you through designing your entire micro habit ecosystem, debugging common stumbles, and eventually scaling up your successes.
It sounds like a comprehensive approach to building lasting change, all stemming from these tiny, manageable actions.
That's the beauty of it. These small habits, performed consistently, become automatic. They change your identity. You start to see yourself as someone who flosses their teeth, or someone who exercises, or someone who reads, because you are doing it, even in a small way. And that identity shift is incredibly powerful. When you change how you see yourself, the habits stop being things you have to do and become things you just do.
So, to recap for our listeners, traditional habits often fail because they demand too much too soon, draining our willpower battery. Micro habits are tiny, almost effortless actions like flossing one tooth or doing one push up, designed for consistent execution, not immediate big results. The goal is to build the habit of taking action, which then compounds over time through momentum.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. The micro habit revolution is about making change accessible, sustainable, and ultimately inevitable. It's about understanding that small steps, taken consistently, lead to the biggest transformations. We are building the foundation today for a much larger structure tomorrow.
I'm already feeling inspired, Alex. For the first time, change feels actually achievable instead of overwhelming.
That's the magic of the micro habit. It removes the barriers and opens the door to real progress. By lowering the bar, we actually ensure we can clear it every single day. Are you ready to start your micro habit journey?
Absolutely. I'm ready to find my one tooth to floss.
Fantastic. In our next episode, we are talking about the 2-minute rule, your gateway to taking immediate action. Next episode, the 2-minute rule, your gateway to action. Welcome back. Last time, we introduced the idea of massive change through tiny steps. Now, let's tackle the cornerstone of this approach, the 2-minute rule.
Ah, the 2-minute rule. It sounds so simple, yet it feels like the key to getting started.
Exactly. It's the gateway. The 2-minute rule means reducing any new habit to something that takes less than 2 minutes to do. Think about something you want to start doing more of, like reading, exercising, or meditating.
Okay, let's say I want to read more books. My goal is a chapter a day, but looking at the whole book can feel daunting. My mind jumps to I don't have time or I'm too tired.
That's your brain's resistance. It sees a big task and creates roadblocks. But with the 2-minute rule, you reframe that habit. Instead of read a chapter a day, your micro habit becomes open my book. That's it. Opening the book takes maybe 10 seconds.
Open my book. That seems so insignificant. But then what happens? Because just opening the book isn't the real goal, is it?
The beauty is, once you've opened the book, you've overcome the initial inertia. You've broken through the first barrier. Often, you'll find yourself reading a page or two or a few paragraphs. You started, and once you're in motion, it's easier to keep going. The 2-minute rule isn't about limiting yourself forever. It's about lowering the activation energy, making it almost impossible to say no to starting.
So, it's an invitation rather than a demand. An invitation to start is easier to accept than a demand to complete a full task. If my goal was to exercise, instead of go to the gym for an hour, it becomes put on my workout clothes.
Precisely. Or do one push-up, or step outside for 1 minute. The act of doing that incredibly small thing signals to your brain that you're committed. You've begun. This principle applies to virtually any habit. Want to meditate? Your micro habit is sit on your cushion. Want to drink more water? Fill a glass. Want to learn a language? Open your language app.
This really highlights the micro in micro habit. We're talking about an action so small that you can't reasonably refuse it. It removes all excuses.
Exactly. It disarms your resistance. Think of it like this. Your brain is a computer, and starting a new task is like booting it up. It takes effort. The 2-minute rule is like having a really fast boot up sequence. It gets things going so quickly that you barely notice the effort, bypassing the part of your brain that says this is too hard.
And the repetition reinforces the behavior. Even if you only end up doing the 2-minute action, you're still building the habit of doing the thing. You're creating the neural pathways associated with that behavior.
That's a fantastic way to put it. You're building the habit of showing up. Over time, that consistency, that mere act of showing up for 2 minutes builds momentum. And momentum leads to significant change. Remember when we discussed the brain's plasticity? This consistent, even if tiny, initiation of the habit strengthens those neural connections.
So, to summarize the 2-minute rule for our listeners, identify a habit you want to build. Then, reduce that habit to its absolute smallest version, something that takes less than 2 minutes to complete. The goal is to make starting so easy that you can't say no.
Yes, and don't worry about the 2 minutes being the end point. That's just the hook. Once you've started, you'll often find yourself doing more. But always ensure your starting point is that ridiculously small 2-minute action. This is about building consistency before intensity.
This is so empowering. It takes the pressure off. Instead of feeling guilty for not doing more, you celebrate the simple act of starting.
And celebrating those small wins is crucial, which we'll cover later. For now, the challenge for you is to identify just one habit you'd like to start. Then, figure out what that habit looks like when it's condensed to under 2 minutes. Write it down. Commit to it.
So, if I wanted to declutter my workspace, my 2-minute habit would be to pick up one item and put it where it belongs. Or even just to clear a small section of my desk.
Perfect. The key is that it's a defined, actionable step that requires minimal effort to initiate. You're essentially tricking yourself into building a new habit by making the entry point so low. This is your handshake with a new behavior.
It's like a warm-up for your habits. You wouldn't jump into a marathon without warming up, right? This is the warm-up for building any significant change in your life.
Couldn't have said it better. This principle of making it incredibly easy to start is the foundation. We're building a revolution, one tiny step at a time. So, take that first tiny step today. Embrace the 2-minute rule, and you'll be amazed at how much progress you can make simply by making it incredibly easy to begin.
It really does feel like a gateway to action. You've made it so simple to get over that initial hurdle.
And remember, the only failure is not starting. With the 2-minute rule, you have no excuse not to start. So, find that one habit, shrink it down, and embrace the power of beginning. We've successfully laid the groundwork for starting any new habit. Next episode, we'll explore how to make habits even smaller with habit shrinking, making the impossible truly possible. Welcome back. Last time we covered the 2-minute rule. Now let's tackle habit shrinking.
That's right, Alex. We learned that making a new habit take less than 2 minutes makes us far more likely to actually do it. It's about removing that initial barrier to entry.
Exactly. And today, we're diving even deeper into making habits feel incredibly manageable. We're going to talk about the art of habit shrinking. This is where we take any habit, no matter how big or daunting it seems, and break it down into its absolute smallest possible form.
Habit shrinking? I love that already. It sounds like a way to tackle those huge goals that usually feel impossible. So, how do we actually shrink a habit?
It's more strategic than just cutting. Think of it like sculpting. You start with a large block of marble. That's your big, overwhelming goal. Then, you don't try to carve the entire statue at once. Instead, you focus on that first, tiny chip. Habit shrinking is all about identifying that very first, incredibly small action.
So, if my big habit is read a book every week, what's the ridiculously small version?
That's a great example. For read a book every week, the habit shrinking might be open the book, or even more simply, pick up the book and place it on my bedside table. The key is to make it so small that you almost can't not do it.
Open the book. Wow. That's remarkably small. So, the goal isn't to read on day one. It's just to perform this minuscule action?
Precisely. We're not aiming for mastery or completion yet. We're aiming for consistency. Once you can reliably open the book every day, you've built a foundational habit. Then you can naturally expand from there. We're building momentum with the smallest possible step.
This is so powerful because it bypasses that mental resistance we all feel. That voice that says, I don't have time, or this is too hard. If the next step is just open the book, that voice doesn't have as much ammunition.
Absolutely. It's like training wheels for a bicycle. You don't start by riding down a mountain. You start by getting comfortable with just a single pedal stroke. Habit shrinking is our mental training wheels.
Let's try another one. What about a habit that seems more physical, like exercise for 30 minutes every day?
Excellent question. We can shrink that down beautifully. Instead of 30 minutes of exercise, the micro habit could be put on my workout clothes or walk to the end of the driveway and back. That's it. It's about initiating the act of exercise, not necessarily the full workout itself.
Put on my workout clothes. That's brilliant. Because once those clothes are on, you're already halfway there, aren't you? The inertia is much lower.
Exactly. We're leveraging the principle of ease. When something is incredibly easy, our brains don't perceive it as a threat or a burden. This allows us to build consistency without the usual struggle. Think of it like a tiny seed. It's small, but it has the potential to grow into something magnificent.
So, to recap habit shrinking, we're taking a large goal and making it ridiculously small. We make the action so tiny that it's almost impossible to resist. We are making the impossible possible by breaking it down.
You've got it. And this technique, habit shrinking, isn't limited to exercise or reading. It applies to any goal. Want to learn a new language? Shrink, study Spanish for an hour to open your language app or look up one new word. Want to meditate? Shrink, meditate for 20 minutes to sit on your cushion for 30 seconds.
30 seconds of meditation. That sounds achievable even on the busiest days. It's about creating a win, no matter how small, to keep that momentum going.
Yes, and it's important to understand that this is not a trick to avoid effort in the long run. It's a strategic starting point. Once you consistently perform your micro habit, your brain starts to associate that action with progress. The resistance fades, and you'll often find yourself naturally wanting to do a little more.
So, the open the book habit might naturally evolve into read one page and then read 2 pages, and so on.
Precisely. The micro habit is the entry point. It's the spark that ignites the fire. And once the fire is lit, it has its own energy. Habit shrinking is all about making that initial spark easy to create. We're making the impossible possible by breaking it down to its absolute smallest, most manageable form. You'll adapt any habit, big or small, into its micro form.
This is such a fantastic reinforcement of the 2-minute rule from last time. It's about making the start of the habit so simple that it requires almost no motivation.
Exactly. And this leads us perfectly into our next topic. We'll explore what happens when motivation inevitably dips.
So, if you've been overwhelmed by big goals, remember the power of habit shrinking. Take any habit, no matter how daunting, and find its absolute smallest actionable step. Make it ridiculously easy to start.
This is the essence of making the impossible possible. With habit shrinking, you're not just making a habit easier, you're making it inevitable.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to the micro habit revolution. Last time, we explored habit shrinking, making daunting tasks manageable with the 2-minute rule.
Absolutely, Alex. Shrinking habits down to their basics unlocked the potential for action. It's about finding the smallest step, so there's no excuse not to take it.
Exactly. Today, we're diving into a technique that makes these tiny habits more likely to stick, trigger linking, or habit stacking. We'll connect new micro habits to things you already do automatically.
Habit stacking. So, we're attaching a new habit onto an existing one?
Precisely. Think about your daily routine. You have dozens of automatic actions: getting out of bed, brushing your teeth, pouring coffee, getting dressed. These are your existing habits, your daily triggers.
Right. I don't consciously decide to brush my teeth. It just happens.
And that's the power we want to harness. Trigger linking means identifying an automatic behavior, your trigger, and then immediately performing the new micro habit. The existing habit acts as a signal.
So, instead of remembering to do something new, we use something we already remember as a prompt?
You've got it. This offloads the burden from willpower. Willpower is finite, but our ingrained habits are on autopilot. By linking your new micro habit to an existing one, you're riding on the coattails of a deeply established behavior.
That makes so much sense. It feels less like adding to a to-do list and more like integrating it seamlessly.
Exactly. Let's use an example. You want to drink more water. Remembering to grab a glass every hour can be tough.
It certainly can. You get engrossed in work, and suddenly it's evening and you've barely had any water.
With trigger linking, we find an existing habit. Every time you go to the kitchen for your morning coffee, link a new micro habit: one sip of water,
Okay, I can see that. Going to the kitchen for coffee is the trigger, and taking one sip of water is the new micro habit.
right? Or another common trigger is using the restroom. Every time you use the restroom, link the micro habit of doing 3 squats.
3 squats. That's tiny, but it's a start. And it's easily linked to something I do multiple times a day.
Precisely. The key is that the new micro habit must be very small. If your new habit was 50 squats, linking it would feel overwhelming. But 3 squats? That's easy. It becomes almost as automatic as the trigger.
So, it's about finding that perfect pairing, a reliable trigger and a tiny, effortless new habit to attach.
Yes, and the beauty of this is its flexibility. You can link habits throughout your entire day. Or some other automatic things you do in the morning.
I get dressed. I open my laptop. I check my email.
Perfect. For opening your laptop, Link the micro habit of taking 3 deep breaths. You open your laptop, and before you dive into emails, you take 3 deep breaths.
That's brilliant. It shifts your mental state right away. And what about checking email?
Link a positive affirmation. Before you read that first email, say one positive thing about yourself or your day out loud. I am capable, or today is going to be a good day. Again, incredibly small, but powerful when done consistently.
This is really opening up possibilities. It can be for anything you want to build.
Absolutely. We can use this in our relationships too. Want to express more appreciation? Link it to a common interaction. Every time you say goodbye to your partner, or when they get home, link a micro habit of saying one specific thing you appreciate about them.
Oh, that's lovely. Instead of just a quick bye, it becomes an opportunity for connection. I appreciate that you always make me laugh.
Exactly. It could be as simple as, I appreciate your help with the dishes last night, or I appreciate your calm presence. Consistency builds the deeper impact.
So, to recap, trigger linking is about identifying established, automatic behaviors, our triggers, and then attaching a new, tiny microhabit to occur immediately after. This leverages existing routines to make new habits feel more automatic and require less willpower.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. It's like creating invisible threads that tie your desired actions to the fabric of your existing life. By linking new habits to old, we make them less fragile. The key is to start with very reliable triggers and very small habits.
And to be creative. Think about your day, identify those automatic moments, and see where you can interweave these tiny, positive actions.
Yes, be observant of your own rhythms. You might be surprised at how many opportunities there are.
So, for anyone listening, I encourage you to think, what are 3 things you do automatically every single day? And then, what's one tiny micro habit you could link to each of those?
Excellent challenge, Lisa. This strategy of trigger linking is incredibly effective because it requires minimal cognitive load and willpower. It's about making the desired behavior the path of least resistance. You're building upon a foundation that's already there.
It feels like a sustainable way to evolve without feeling overwhelmed. We're not trying to overhaul our lives overnight. We're subtly nudging ourselves in the right direction.
Exactly. And over time, these small nudges consistently applied lead to significant transformations. It's the persistence with these tiny actions that truly matters.
So, we've learned about making habits small, and now about linking them to existing routines. This feels like we're building a solid framework for lasting change.
We are. And next time, we'll tackle a topic that often trips people up, the misunderstood role of motivation.
Ah, the motivation myth. I'm looking forward to that.
Next episode, the motivation myth, embracing consistency over enthusiasm. Welcome back to the Micro Habit Revolution. Last time, we explored trigger linking, attaching new habits to old ones.
Now, in episode 5, we're tackling a big one, the motivation myth. You're saying relying on motivation is a mistake?
Exactly. Today, we're challenging the idea that motivation is the key to success. We'll show why consistency is the real driver of change and how micro habits help us build that consistency even when motivation is gone.
I know that feeling. Motivated one day, completely uninspired the next. It's incredibly frustrating.
And that's the problem. Motivation is an emotion. It ebbs and flows. Like a wave, you can ride high or feel drained. If your habits depend on motivation's high tides, they'll break when the tide goes out.
So, if it's not motivation, what builds consistency? Especially when we don't feel like doing something.
That's where micro habits shine. Remember, We're making habits so small they're almost too easy. One push-up, one tooth flossed, one page read.
Making the start incredibly simple.
Precisely. These micro habits can be done even on your lowest energy days. A single push-up doesn't require you to be pumped up. Flossing one tooth is achievable even when you're feeling sluggish. It bypasses the need for enthusiasm.
So, it's about showing up consistently, even when you don't feel like it. That sounds simple, but hard to internalize.
It is because our culture often celebrates those inspirational moments. But for most of us, lasting change comes from the consistent execution of small actions.
And when we consistently do these tiny actions, what happens?
You build momentum. Each time you perform your micro habit, you strengthen the neural pathway for that action. You prove to yourself you can do it. It's like building a muscle. Consistent effort over time creates results.
So, it's the accumulation of many small, consistent actions, not the intensity of one.
Exactly. And these micro habits require very little motivational capital. You don't need to convince yourself to do one push-up. You just do it. This frees you from the emotional roller coaster of chasing motivation. You focus on the reliability of showing up.
This really shifts the perspective. We're focusing on a process, not chasing a feeling.
Yes, and this process of consistent, small actions can actually generate motivation. Completing your one push-up might give you a small lift, which can sometimes snowball. You might think, I did one, maybe I'll do two.
So, by relying on consistency, we can create motivation instead of depending on it.
That's the paradox, and it's powerful. It helps us overcome, I don't feel like it. With micro habits, the answer is, it doesn't matter. You just do it. We're putting the system on autopilot.
This is a crucial distinction. Instead of waiting for inspiration, we build a framework that works even when inspiration is absent. It puts us in control.
Absolutely. When we embrace consistency, we're not chasing an elusive feeling. We're building a reliable engine for change. It's about showing up, doing the tiny thing, and trusting the cumulative effect. The motivation myth tells us to wait for the perfect mood. The micro-habit revolution tells us to act, and the mood will follow, or it won't need to.
So, to recap, motivation is an unreliable emotion, and relying on it is frustrating. Micro habits let us act even with low motivation. Consistent execution builds momentum. And this consistent action can even generate motivation, reducing our emotional dependence.
That's the essence of overcoming the motivation myth. It's mastering the art of showing up, no matter what.
Powerful stuff, Alex. It makes you rethink how you approach building habits.
Indeed. Next episode, we're designing your micro-habit ecosystem, creating an environment that supports your tiny habits. Next episode, designing your micro-habit ecosystem. Welcome back. Last time we explored the powerful idea that motivation isn't the key to habit formation, but rather consistency. We learned that relying on enthusiasm is a recipe for failure. Today, we're diving into something that makes that consistency not just bearable, but actually enjoyable. We're talking about Celebration Station, rewarding your wins, big or small.
That sounds crucial, Alex. Because let's be honest, sometimes sticking to a new habit, even a tiny one, can feel like a chore. If there's no immediate payoff, it's easy to let it slide.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's where positive reinforcement comes in. Think about how animals are trained. They get a treat or praise when they do something right. Our brains work similarly. We crave reward. When we introduce a reward right after completing a micro habit, we create a positive association. Our brain learns, hey, doing this feels good, or doing this leads to something nice.
So, it's not just about getting the habit done, but about making sure we feel good about getting it done.
Precisely. And the beauty of micro habits is that the rewards can be just as small and instant as the habits themselves. You don't need to buy yourself something expensive every time you floss one tooth. We're talking about immediate, often internal rewards.
Can you give us some examples? What are these small, instant rewards?
Sure, the simplest reward is internal acknowledgement. A mental high five, a quiet yes or good job to yourself the moment you complete that one push-up or drink that one sip of water. It's about giving yourself credit.
Okay, I can see that. Just that internal nod of accomplishment.
Another powerful, yet simple, reward is positive self-talk. Instead of immediately focusing on what else you need to do, take a moment to appreciate the action you just completed. Say something like, I did it, or that was easy enough. This reinforces the positive feeling.
It's like telling your brain, you're on the right track, keep going.
Exactly. And we could take it a tiny step further. Think about a very small, physical action that brings a smile. Maybe it's a little stretch, a deep breath, or even just a genuinely happy expression on your face for a few seconds. These little physical cues can amplify the positive feeling.
So, it's about creating a positive feedback loop. The small habit leads to a small reward, which then makes you more likely to do the small habit again.
You've nailed it. This is the engine that drives sustained change. Now, when we talk about rewards, it's essential they are immediate. The longer you wait to reward yourself, the weaker the connection becomes in your brain. If you're trying to build a habit of drinking more water and you decide your reward will be a slice of cake at the end of the week, that cake isn't really reinforcing the water drinking habit. It's reinforcing the waiting habit.
That makes sense. The reward needs to be directly tied to the action. So, if I'm doing my 1 minute meditation, the reward isn't watching an hour of TV afterwards, it's what?
It could be that immediate feeling of calm you get from the meditation itself. It could be a mental well done. Or if you want something slightly more tangible, maybe it's the satisfaction of marking it off your list or a quick sip of your favorite herbal tea right after. The key is immediacy and connection.
And this is why micro habits are so powerful, because the rewards can be right there with them.
Absolutely. Now, let's consider when you might use slightly larger rewards. You've been consistently doing your micro habit of read one page before bed for a month. At that point, you've built significant momentum. That's when you might introduce a slightly bigger reward, like buying that book you've been wanting to read. This isn't the immediate, every time reward, but a milestone celebration.
So there are two levels: the immediate, tiny rewards that reinforce the daily action, and then occasional, larger rewards for hitting milestones.
Precisely. And it's important to make sure these rewards are genuinely positive and don't undermine your goals. For instance, if your goal is to eat healthier, rewarding yourself with a binge of junk food would be counterproductive. Your reward should align with your values and aspirations.
So, if my habit is doing 2 minutes of stretching in the morning and my health goal is to be more flexible and energetic, my reward could be feeling a little bit more limber, or that sense of accomplishment, or perhaps a really satisfying glass of water afterwards.
Excellent examples. And remember, the effectiveness of a reward is subjective. What motivates one person might not motivate another. Experiment and find what resonates with you. Some people find a simple check mark on a calendar incredibly satisfying. Others need a bit more.
It's about discovering what makes you feel good about your progress.
Yes. And here's a practical tip. Pre-plan your rewards. Don't wait until after you've completed the habit to figure out what your reward will be. Decide on it beforehand. This primes your brain and makes the reward even more potent. For example, after I do my 1 minute of journaling, I will immediately take 3 deep, satisfying breaths. You've already decided, so there's no hesitation.
That takes away the mental effort of figuring it out in the moment. It's all set up.
It is. And when we talk about rewards, it's also about noticing the intrinsic rewards. As you get consistent with micro habits, you start to feel the benefits naturally. You feel more energetic, more focused, more in control. These intrinsic rewards are the ultimate goal, but the extrinsic, immediate rewards are what get you there by building that initial positive association.
So, to recap for our listeners, celebrating your wins, no matter how small, is vital for habit formation. You should aim for immediate rewards right after completing your micro habit. These can be internal, like self-praise, or small, simple actions. The reward creates a positive feedback loop, making you want to repeat the habit. Pre-planning your rewards can make them even more effective. And remember, the reward should align with your broader goals.
You've summarized it perfectly, Lisa. By actively celebrating each small step, you're not just building a habit, you're building a positive relationship with the process of self-improvement. You're turning effort into enjoyment.
Which makes the whole journey much more sustainable and, dare I say, even fun.
Exactly. And this proactive approach to positive reinforcement leads us perfectly into our next episode, where we'll explore how to design your entire micro-habit ecosystem for maximum success.
Excellent. So next time, we're looking at building out a whole world of small, rewarding habits.
That's right. Next episode, designing your micro-habit ecosystem. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the power of celebrating your wins. Today, we're designing your very own micro-habit ecosystem to maximize impact.
That sounds like a fantastic next step, Alex. It's one thing to know about micro habits, but another to figure out how they all fit together. So, an ecosystem. What does that mean here?
Think of an ecosystem like a natural environment where different elements work together. Your micro-habit ecosystem is the same. It's the arrangement of your small, consistent actions to support your goals and make them feel natural. It's about creating a supportive structure for success.
So, we're not just sprinkling habits randomly. We're creating a planned environment for them. How do we begin designing this?
We start by identifying opportune areas in your day. These are moments where you already have existing routines or transitions. For example, think about your morning. You probably already brush your teeth, make coffee, or get dressed. These are excellent anchors for new micro habits.
Ah, so it's about leveraging what's already happening. Instead of forcing a new habit into an empty gap, we attach it to something familiar. This sounds a lot like trigger linking, which we discussed earlier.
Exactly. We're building upon that principle. Remember trigger linking? The formula is after existing habit, I will new micro habit. Your existing habits are established pathways, and you're adding a small, new turn. So, if you already make your morning coffee, your new micro habit could be after I press the brew button, I will do 2 minutes of stretching.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. It feels less like starting from scratch and more like intelligent integration. What kind of areas are particularly good for placing these habits?
There are a few key areas for a robust ecosystem. First, transition times. These are the moments you move from one activity to another, like finishing work and heading home or getting ready for bed. These are natural breaks where you can reset and inject a new micro habit. For instance, turning off your computer could be a trigger for after I close my laptop, I will write down one thing I'm grateful for.
That makes sense. It's like a mini reset. What else?
Next, consider low energy moments. These are times when you might naturally feel a dip in motivation or focus, like mid-afternoon. Instead of fighting it, you can strategically place a micro habit that either revives you or makes the most of that lull. Maybe it's after I finish lunch, I will take 3 deep breaths to recenter yourself. Or if you're feeling that slump, a micro habit like after I get up from my desk, I will walk to the window and look outside for 30 seconds can provide a quick mental refresh.
So we're not just aiming for productive moments, but also acknowledging and working with our natural energy fluctuations. That feels much more realistic.
Precisely. And the third area is before or after existing anchors. We already touched on this with coffee, but think about things like putting on your shoes to leave the house. You could link before I put on my shoes, I will do 5 squats. Or after finishing dinner, after I clear my plate, I will read 1 page of a book. These are moments that are already bookends to other activities.
So, to recap, we're looking at transition times, low energy moments, and existing anchors, essentially, the natural rhythms and pauses in our day. How do we decide which micro habit to place where?
This is where personalization comes in. You want your micro habit ecosystem to serve your specific goals. Are you trying to improve your fitness? Build a creative practice? Become more mindful? Start by identifying 1 or 2 key goals. Then, brainstorm potential micro habits that directly support those goals.
For example, if my goal is to drink more water, a micro habit could be after I walk into the kitchen, I will pour a glass of water.
Perfect. And then you place that trigger. What do you find yourself going into the kitchen most often? Probably in the morning and maybe after work. So you'd link that habit to those times. Another example, if you want to learn a new language, your micro habit might be after I brush my teeth in the morning, I will say 1 new foreign word.
This is starting to feel very actionable. It's like building a web of small successes.
That's a great analogy, Lisa. It is a web. And the beauty of an ecosystem is that each micro habit can support another. For instance, your morning water drinking habit might lead you to the kitchen, where you then perform your language micro habit. The more interconnected they are, and the more they flow naturally, the stronger your ecosystem becomes.
So, we've identified areas and linked habits to goals. What's the next step in making this ecosystem flourish?
It's about strategically placing them for maximum impact and minimum friction. Think about the flow of your day. You don't want to create an ecosystem where you have to jump between vastly different parts of your house or mental state. Try to group habits that can occur in proximity. If your goal is morning productivity, you might link after I get out of bed. I will make my bed followed by after I make my bed. I will do 2 minutes of focused breathing. And then after my breathing, I will write down my top priority for the day. That creates a smooth, cascading effect.
That's brilliant. It's like creating small, contained chains of positive actions. And we're still keeping them super small and manageable.
Absolutely. The key is to not overload any single point. If you're trying to build a new habit around, say, your evening routine, you might put 1 small habit after dinner, another after you've changed into your pajamas, and a final one just before you turn out the light. 3 micro habits, all within a short, related time frame.
This feels so much more empowering than trying to tackle massive changes all at once. It's about building momentum piece by piece.
Exactly. Your micro habit ecosystem isn't static. As you establish habits, you can gradually scale them up, as we'll discuss in a future episode. But for now, focus on identifying those opportune moments and strategically linking small, goal-oriented actions. What are 1 or 2 areas in your day where you can immediately see a place for 1 to 3 new micro habits?
I'm thinking about my commute. I often find myself just scrolling on my phone. I could link taking out my earbuds to listening to a short podcast episode about a topic I want to learn. And maybe after I hang up my coat when I get home, I'll put on my workout clothes.
Fantastic examples, Lisa. You're already designing your ecosystem. Remember, the goal is to create a series of small, consistent actions that feel natural and supportive. By carefully selecting where you place your micro habits, in transition times, during low energy moments, and around existing anchors, you build a robust structure for lasting change. And these habits can even work together, creating a cascade of positive momentum.
It's about designing your day to work with you, not against you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Next episode, we'll talk about what to do when things don't go according to plan, debugging your habits, and overcoming those inevitable stumbles. Welcome back. Last time, we explored how to design your micro-habit ecosystem. Now let's tackle debugging your habits.
That's so important, Alex, because nobody's perfect. We all have days where things don't go as planned, and suddenly, that micro habit we were so diligently practicing, well, it's missed. It can feel really discouraging.
Exactly, Lisa. And that feeling of discouragement is often the biggest obstacle. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I missed it today, so I've ruined everything. I might as well just give up. But that's a myth.
So, before we dive into the how, can you tell us why it's so crucial to address these stumbles instead of letting them derail us?
Absolutely. Think of your habits like a carefully constructed scaffolding. If one small part of that scaffolding weakens, the whole structure doesn't collapse. Instead, you reinforce that weak spot. Missing a single instance of a habit is not a failure. It's simply an opportunity to learn and adjust. The danger comes when one missed day turns into two, then three, then a week. That's when momentum is lost, and it becomes much harder to restart. Our goal is to prevent that domino effect.
That's a great way to put it. Not a collapse, but a weak spot to reinforce. So, what are the most common reasons people stumble? What are the usual suspects in habit debugging?
There are a few big ones. One is simple. Life happens. Unexpected calls, urgent tasks, feeling unwell. These are all valid reasons for missing a habit. Another is overambition. Sometimes we set micro habits that were almost micro enough, and a slight increase in demands on our time or energy makes them unsustainable on a given day. And then there's environmental friction. Maybe your usual trigger is no longer available, or a new distraction pops up.
Life happens. I can definitely relate to that. And overambition makes sense too. Sometimes we get so excited when we start, we pick something that's just a little too big, and then we wonder why we can't stick to it every single day.
Precisely. So, the first step in debugging is acknowledging that it's okay to stumble. Don't let guilt or self-criticism take over. Instead, shift your mindset to one of problem solving. Ask yourself, what happened today that prevented me from doing my micro habit?
Okay, so I missed my 2-minute journaling today because my kid woke up early with a fever. What's the debug step there? Just accept it and move on?
It's a bit more than just accepting. It's about a quick analysis. For your journaling example, you might realize that the time you usually journal at is no longer viable. So, the debug step is to identify a new trigger or a modified habit for tomorrow, or even later today if possible. Perhaps you can do those 2 minutes right before bed. Or on days when getting quiet time is impossible, perhaps your micro habit for that day becomes simply writing down one positive thing that happened, which takes even less time and is more achievable.
Ah, so it's about immediate adaptation. Not letting the missed day dictate the future, but using it as information to adjust the plan for the next opportunity.
Exactly. This isn't about perfection. It's about building resilience. A key strategy here is having a predefined oops plan. This is a simple, pre-decided action you take only when you miss your habit. For example, your oops plan might be, if I miss my morning meditation, I will do 10 deep breaths before I go to sleep. It's a tiny win that reconnects you to the habit's intention.
A predefined oops plan. I love that. It takes the decision-making pressure off when you're already feeling a bit defeated. It's like having a pre-programmed get back on track button.
Precisely. And often, the reason for stumbling is more subtle, like a lack of motivation. We talked about the motivation myth in episode 5, remember? Relying on motivation is a slippery slope. When motivation wanes, habits falter. Debugging stumbles also means re-examining your commitment and your why. Are you still clear on why you started this micro habit in the first place?
That's a good point, Alex. Sometimes we just drift away from the original purpose. Remembering the benefits, how much better we feel, how much more we accomplish, can reignite that drive.
It really can. Another common stumbling block is a resistance to change, even small changes. Sometimes it's a subconscious pushback. This is where celebrating your wins, as we discussed in episode 6, becomes even more critical. When you do get back on track after a stumble, make sure you acknowledge it. A tiny personal reward can reinforce the positive action of getting back on track.
So, we've talked about identifying the cause, having an oops plan, and remembering our why. Are there any other practical debugging tools for when we feel resistance or just stuck?
Yes, one powerful technique is habit stacking revisited. Remember how we linked new habits to existing ones? Well, when you stumble, you can use habit stacking to reestablish a routine. If you missed your reading micro habit, you could stack it onto an established one. After I brush my teeth, I will read one page. The existing habit acts as a stronger anchor for the reemerging one.
That makes so much sense. It's like using the strength of one successful habit to pull a weaker or temporarily derailed habit back into line.
Exactly. We're not trying to brute force willpower here. We're using system design. We're looking at the system and identifying a glitch, then implementing a fix. Another way to debug is to temporarily simplify the habit even further. If your 2-minute meditation feels like too much on a tough day, make it a 1-minute meditation or even just 3 deep breaths, focusing on the act of engaging with the habit, not necessarily the full outcome for that moment. The goal is continuity.
So, simplification is key when you're struggling. It's about maintaining the connection, no matter how small. It reminds me of our early discussions about making habits so small they're impossible to fail. Maybe on those tough days, we regress back to that ultra small version.
You got it, Lisa. It's about understanding that regressions are normal and part of the process. The most successful people don't necessarily avoid stumbles. They just get back up faster. They have a strategy for when they fall off the wagon.
This has been incredibly helpful, Alex. So, to recap for our listeners, when you stumble on a micro habit, don't despair. First, acknowledge that it's normal and not a failure. Then quickly analyze why you stumbled. Was it life, overambition, friction? Have a predefined oops plan to get you back on track immediately. Reconnect with your original motivation and consider using habit stacking or temporary simplification to reestablish the routine.
And remember, the goal is resilience. It's about building a habit system that can withstand the inevitable bumps in the road. By actively debugging your habits, you're not just overcoming stumbles, you're strengthening your ability to create lasting change. Next episode, we'll explore the art of scaling up and how to gradually grow your micro habits in a larger, more impactful routines. Welcome back, everyone, to the Micro Habit Revolution. Last time, we explored how to overcome stumbles and resistance when building habits.
That's right, Alex. We learned how to analyze setbacks and get back on track, building resilience.
Exactly. And today, we're exploring the exciting next step. What happens after your micro habit feels like second nature? We're diving into the art of gradual growth, learning how to scale those tiny actions into something bigger.
Gradual growth. That sounds like the secret sauce for making micro habits truly transformational. Because let's be honest, doing one push up a day is great, but eventually you want to build some muscle.
Precisely, Lisa. The beauty of the micro habit is its low barrier to entry. It's easy to do, but the true power comes when you learn to gently and sustainably scale those habits up. This is where you move from just starting a habit to truly mastering it and seeing substantial progress.
So, it's not about suddenly deciding to do a full hour of exercise after doing 5 minutes for weeks, right? That sounds like a recipe for burnout.
Absolutely not. That would be the opposite of gradual growth. Think of it like a garden. You don't expect a giant tree overnight from a tiny seed. You water it, give it sunlight, and it grows little by little. Scaling habits is the same. You want to increase duration, intensity, or complexity in very small, manageable steps.
Okay, I'm picturing that. So, how do we actually do this? What's the first principle?
The first principle is to wait until the micro habit is truly automatic. It should require almost no conscious effort. If you're still struggling to do your one push-up or read one page, it's too early to scale. Patience is key here. You've built a solid foundation.
So, recognize when it's truly easy, when it's just part of your routine.
Exactly. And once that foundation is solid, the next step is to make a tiny increase. When we say tiny, we mean almost imperceptibly small. If your micro habit is walking for 2 minutes, maybe you increase it to 3 minutes. Or if you're meditating for 1 minute, you might try 2 minutes. The goal is to add just enough challenge to push yourself slightly, but not so much that it feels overwhelming.
So, it's like adding just one extra grain of sand to a pile. It doesn't change the overall shape much, but it contributes to growth.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. This minimal increase is crucial because it maintains the feeling of ease. It doesn't trigger your resistance or make you feel like you're failing. You're still succeeding, just a little more.
And how long do you stick with that slightly increased habit before increasing it again?
This brings us to the second principle, consistency at the new level. You want to practice the slightly longer or more intense habit consistently until it also feels automatic. This might take a week or might take a month. The timeline depends on the individual and the habit. The important thing is that you're not rushing. You're letting your brain and body adapt to the new normal.
So, we don't jump from 3 minutes of walking to 10 minutes just because we did 3 minutes successfully a few times. We stay at 3 for a while.
Precisely. You let it become your new, effortless routine. Once it feels easy again, then you consider another tiny increase. This process of tiny increase, then consistent practice, is the engine of gradual growth. It's a slow, steady, and incredibly powerful way to build momentum.
This sounds so much more sustainable than trying to make massive leaps. And I imagine it also helps us to connect with our bodies and minds more, to really feel what we can handle.
Absolutely. It fosters a deep sense of self-awareness and self-trust. You're learning to listen to your own signals. Are you feeling genuinely capable of a little more, or are you just pushing yourself out of impatience? Gradual growth teaches you to honor both your ambition and your current capacity.
And what if, during this scaling up process, we do stumble? We miss a day, or the slightly longer duration feels too hard. How do we handle that in this context?
That's a fantastic question, and it ties back wonderfully to our last episode. If you stumble, you don't abandon the scaling. You simply acknowledge it, perhaps slightly reset the new duration if needed, maybe back to the previous level for a bit, and then you try again. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's persistent, gradual progress. A stumble doesn't erase all the progress you've made. It's just a temporary detour.
So, if I've been doing 4 minutes of meditation and it feels easy, and I try 5 minutes and it feels really hard, I might go back to four for a bit longer, or just accept that 5 minutes is a step I'm not quite ready for yet and come back to it.
Exactly. You might even decide that for this particular habit, the ideal sustained duration is 4 minutes, and that's perfectly okay. Not every habit needs to be scaled indefinitely. Sometimes the goal is to reach a sustainable level that fits your life. But for habits where you do want to see bigger results, like exercise or learning a new skill, this gradual scaling is paramount.
It's like building a skyscraper. You don't just pour all the concrete for all floors at once. You build one floor, make sure it's stable, then move to the next.
A perfect analogy. And another important aspect of gradual growth is understanding the concept of habit stacking in a new light. When you've successfully scaled up a habit, you can then use that stronger habit as a trigger for another micro habit, or even a slightly larger new habit.
Oh, I see. So, if my 2 minutes of journaling has grown into 10 minutes, I can now link something else to those 10 minutes of journaling.
Precisely. It's a progressive build. You're not just adding an hour to your workout overnight. You're adding 2 minutes to your walk, then three, then five. And then, perhaps, you link a 5 minute stretching routine after your 5 minute walk. Suddenly, What began as a minuscule action is now a 15-minute block of healthy activity, built entirely through a series of tiny, manageable increments.
This is so empowering. It makes those big goals feel achievable because you're not looking at the massive end goal. You're just focused on the next tiny step.
That's the entire philosophy, really. By focusing on gradual growth, you consistently train your brain to accept new behaviors as normal. You build confidence with every successful tiny increase. You cultivate a mindset that embraces steady progress over explosive, unsustainable bursts. And this, my friends, is how you truly unlock the revolution within those micro habits.
So, to recap today's episode on gradual growth, first, ensure your micro habit is truly automatic before you think about scaling. Then, make only the tiniest, most manageable increase in duration or intensity. Practice this new, slightly bigger habit consistently until it also feels effortless. Then and only then consider another tiny increase. And remember, if you stumble, just reset and keep moving forward, honoring your progress and your capacity.
You got it, Lisa. This is the art of scaling up intelligently, turning those initial sparks into sustained, powerful flames of change. Next episode, we'll explore how to cultivate a lasting micro-habit mindset. Welcome back to the Micro-Habit Revolution. This is episode 10, where we explore the micro-habit mindset.
We've learned how to make habits small, link them, and celebrate wins. But what's really going on inside our minds to make these tiny changes so powerful? It's all about the right mindset, Alex.
Exactly, Lisa. The very first piece of the micro-habit mindset is embracing imperfection. We often want our habits to be perfect, and micro-habits are designed to be imperfect.
That's freeing. So if my micro habit is drink one sip of water and I only manage half a sip, it's still a win? It's about the action, not flawless execution.
Precisely. The goal is progress, however small. It's not about never missing a day, but about showing up, even in the smallest way. This removes the pressure and fear of failure. Think of a baby learning to walk. They fall, but they keep trying. We need that same grace for ourselves with habits.
A great analogy. This also ties into focusing on the process over the outcome. When we're fixated on big results like losing 20 pounds, we get discouraged easily.
Absolutely. The micro-habit mindset shifts our focus. Instead of lose weight, we focus on walk for 2 minutes after coffee. We celebrate completing that walk. The consistent action, the process, becomes the victory, and the outcome naturally follows.
So, we train ourselves to find satisfaction in the consistent small effort, not just the end goal. That builds sustainable motivation.
It does. It cultivates a growth-oriented perspective. We understand that with consistent effort, we can improve. Remember habit stacking? That's a process-oriented strategy, focusing on linking and the small new action.
This helps us see ourselves as capable of growth, one tiny step at a time. It combats the feeling of, I can't do this.
Exactly. It's about self-compassion. When you miss a micro-habit, view it as feedback, not failure. Learn, adjust, and move forward.
This mindset changes our relationship with habits. They become tools for self-improvement, not chores. It's an empowering perspective.
And the micro-habit journey isn't linear. There will be slips. But with this mindset, you don't see it as a catastrophe. You see it as a temporary detour.
So instead of giving up, we acknowledge it, figure out why, and gently reintroduce our micro habits. Maybe we need to shrink them even further.
Precisely. It's about resilience. The micro-habit mindset builds resilience because habits are so small and manageable, they're hard to abandon. Even on a tough day, you can manage one deep breath.
So, to recap the micro habit mindset, 1. Embrace imperfection. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. 2. Focus on the process, the consistent action over the outcome.
3. Cultivate a growth perspective, viewing setbacks as learning opportunities. And 4. Build resilience through self-compassion and seeing detours as temporary. This is the foundation for a micro-habit revolution.
It's a fundamental shift in how we see our ability to change and grow. It's about patience and trusting the power of consistent, tiny actions. This mindset, combined with the techniques, leads to lasting success.
Indeed. And this mindset will fuel your journey as you continue building and refining your micro-habits. It's the invisible engine of the revolution. Next episode, micro-habits for health and wellness. Welcome back. Last time we discussed the importance of a micro-habit mindset. Now, let's apply these principles to health and wellness.
That's exciting, Alex. Health and wellness felt like such a huge, overwhelming topic for so long. I'm eager to see how we can break it down.
Exactly, Lisa. Many of us want to eat healthier, exercise more, sleep better, or be more mindful, but the sheer scale of these goals can be paralyzing. We think we need to do a full hour of exercise or overhaul our entire diet overnight.
And that's where the motivation myth comes in, right? We wait for this burst of energy or inspiration that rarely arrives, and then we give up.
Precisely. But with micro habits, we can make tangible progress without relying on motivation. Let's start with nutrition. For someone who wants to eat more vegetables, instead of aiming to eat a salad every day, what's a micro habit?
Okay, applying the 2-minute rule. Maybe it's washing one piece of lettuce, or taking out one vegetable from the fridge.
Perfect. Washing one piece of lettuce is so simple, it's almost embarrassing not to do it. Or perhaps my micro habit could be adding one frozen berry to my morning smoothie. These small actions don't require immense willpower, but gradually increase our exposure and willingness to engage further.
I can see how doing that consistently would make adding more vegetables feel less daunting over time. It's like building a foundation of vegetable friendliness.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about exercise. For many, the barrier is getting to the gym or even putting on workout clothes. What's a micro habit for that?
Maybe it's just putting on my running shoes, or doing 5 squats right after I brush my teeth.
Both are excellent. Or how about this? After you finish your morning coffee, do 10 jumping jacks. That's it. 10 jumping jacks. No intense workout gear required. No marathon training plan. Just 10 quick movements.
That's so doable. And it's tied to an existing habit, drinking coffee. Trigger linking in action for wellness.
You got it. The goal is to make the action so small, it's almost impossible to say no. Think of it as opening a door just a crack, rather than trying to leap through a closed one. For sleep, a micro habit could be putting your phone on the charger across the room before you even think about getting into bed.
Oh, that's a good one. It tackles screen time before bed without requiring a full digital detox immediately. What about mindfulness or mental well-being?
For mindfulness, instead of saying, I need to meditate for 30 minutes, a micro habit could be taking 3 deep breaths before starting your workday, or noticing one thing you're grateful for as you lock your front door in the morning. These are tiny moments of intentional presence, not demanding practices.
So, for nutrition, it's small food additions or preparations. For exercise, it's brief movements linked to existing routines. For sleep, it's small pre-bedtime actions that set you up for rest. And for mindfulness, it's brief moments of intentional awareness.
Exactly. And remember that vital step, celebration. After your 10 jumping jacks, give yourself a mental high five. After you wash that single piece of lettuce, acknowledge it. These small rewards reinforce the behavior and make you feel good, which is crucial for long-term adherence.
It's like creating a positive feedback loop, even for the tiniest steps. This really reframes health and wellness from a chore to a series of manageable, rewarding actions.
That's the power of the micro-habit revolution applied to our personal well-being. We're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming for consistent, small wins that build momentum. These aren't just about physical health, either. These principles can extend to managing stress, improving mood, and cultivating a more positive outlook.
It's about making lasting change feel not just possible, but actually achievable, one tiny step at a time. Thanks for breaking down these practical examples, Alex.
You're welcome, Lisa. Next episode, we'll focus on applying micro habits to productivity and focus. Welcome back. This time, we're focusing on productivity and concentration.
How do micro habits help with focus and getting things done?
Micro habits make productivity feel less overwhelming. Large projects can lead to procrastination. Breaking them into tiny steps makes them manageable.
So, instead of write a report, it's open the document and write one sentence.
Exactly. Habit shrinking turns big goals into trivial actions, like open the relevant folder or read one paragraph. It's so easy you can't say no.
That tiny action breaks inertia and builds momentum.
And we can use trigger linking to attach these habits to existing routines. After your morning coffee, perform your tiny productive action.
So, after checking emails, I could write down the single most important task for the day.
A perfect example. That sets your day with intention and focus, building momentum without relying on motivation.
What about distractions? They're a huge productivity killer.
Micro habits can create intentional moments of focus. Try close my email app when starting a focused work block, or put my phone on do not disturb for 15 minutes.
So, we make minimizing distractions a micro habit?
Yes, it trains your brain to focus. Designing your work environment can also be micro habits like clearing your desk for 2 minutes at the end of the day.
A clear desk, a clear mind. That's a tangible benefit. So, we can use micro habits to fight procrastination and build focus?
Absolutely. It's a productive scaffolding built one tiny brick at a time. For overwhelming tasks, try 1 minute planning. Identify the single most impactful task for a work block.
60 seconds to choose one thing. That's much less intimidating and forces prioritization.
And it improves your ability to identify what truly matters, building your focus muscle. It's like training for a marathon, starting with short distances.
So, it's about creating small pauses to guide us back to work linked to triggers.
Precisely. Small, consistent actions yield big results. For productivity, start with open your project document, write one sentence, turn off notifications for 5 minutes, or plan your next task for 1 minute.
It sounds so achievable. We're essentially tricking ourselves into being productive because it's so easy.
You're bypassing resistance. It's so simple to start, you just do it. And often, you can keep going. These micro habits are the gentle nudge to get moving.
So, to recap for productivity and focus, we shrink tasks, link them to triggers, and create intentional focus moments. This combats procrastination and overwhelm. We aim for consistent, small starts to build momentum.
That's a perfect summary. In our next episode, we will explore how micro habits apply to relationships and personal growth.
Fantastic! Join us next episode for episode 13, Micro Habits for Relationships and Personal Growth.
Welcome back to the micro habit revolution. Last time we covered how micro habits can turbocharge productivity and focus. Today, we're exploring how these tiny actions impact relationships and personal growth.
And that's such a crucial area. We often think of habits in terms of tasks, but they're also how we connect with others and evolve. It's exciting to see the micro habit philosophy applied here.
Absolutely. Let's start with relationships. Think about communication. Wishing we were better listeners or more present can feel like huge undertakings.
Right. Be a better listener sounds like a massive life overhaul. Where do you even begin?
Precisely. That's where micro habits shine. For better communication, consider a micro habit like, after asking a question, I will wait silently for at least 3 seconds before speaking again. This pause forces you to truly listen and process. It makes someone feel heard.
Oh, I love that. It's so simple, yet powerful. It addresses the tendency to interrupt. So, instead of improve my communication skills, it's a concrete, actionable step.
Exactly. Another one for relationships. When I see my partner, I will make eye contact and smile, then ask a specific question about their day. This replaces a generic, how was your day? With something more engaging. It's showing genuine interest in a microdose.
That's fantastic. It makes me think of trigger linking. You could link this micro habit to the trigger of walking through the door after work or seeing your partner at lunch.
You got it. And we can extend this to expressing appreciation. Instead of being more grateful, try, before bed, I will think of one specific thing I appreciated about someone today and mentally thank them. Or even simpler, I will send one appreciative text message to a friend or family member each day.
That feels so connected to that celebration station idea. Not just celebrating our own wins, but celebrating the positive interactions we have with others. It reinforces those good feelings and makes us more likely to repeat them.
Spot on, Lisa. Now, let's pivot to personal growth. This is another area where grand ambitions lead to inertia. I want to learn a new language, or I want to become more knowledgeable about history. These are noble goals, but how we start?
It feels overwhelming, doesn't it? Like you need hours every day dedicated to learning.
Indeed. Let's break it down. For learning a new language, a micro habit could be, I will open my language app and complete the first quick lesson each morning. Or, if you're reading a book for personal development, I will read one page of my chosen book before I check my phone.
That makes it accessible. One page doesn't feel like a chore. It's just a tiny investment of time and effort. And you're gradually building momentum.
And that momentum, as we discussed, is key to gradual growth. You're not trying to sprint a marathon. You're taking small, consistent steps that add up. For intellectual curiosity, consider, when I encounter a word I don't know, I will look it up immediately.
That's brilliant for expanding vocabulary and understanding. It's about being actively engaged with your learning environment rather than passively letting opportunities pass by.
Exactly. And for self-improvement, it's not always about acquiring new skills, but also about overcoming our internal resistance. We spoke about the motivation myth. Personal growth often requires facing discomfort. So, a micro habit could be, when I feel resistance to a task that will help me grow, I will do just 1 minute of it.
The 1 minute rule in action for personal growth. That's such a practical application. It helps you bypass that initial hurdle of feeling unmotivated or overwhelmed. You just do the smallest possible bit, and often you find yourself continuing.
It's a powerful psychological hack. Speaking of psychology, another aspect of personal growth is self-awareness. A micro habit for this could be, for 30 seconds, I will simply observe my thoughts and feelings without judgment. It's a mini meditation, a moment of mindfulness.
That's so important for understanding ourselves and managing our reactions. It ties back to that idea of the micro habit mindset. It's about being intentional about your inner world as much as your outer actions.
It truly is. And when we successfully implement these micro habits in our relationships and personal growth, we can use the celebration strategies we learned about. Acknowledge that you successfully listened for those 3 seconds or that you looked up that word. That positive reinforcement is crucial for making these new behaviors stick.
So, to recap what we've covered today, for relationships, we can implement micro habits like actively listening with pauses, asking specific questions, and expressing appreciation through quick texts or mental thanks. For personal growth, we can focus on small learning actions like completing one app lesson or reading one page, looking up unknown words, and tackling resistance with a 1 minute rule.
And remember, the core principle remains the same. Break down large aspirations into manageable, actionable steps. These tiny, consistent efforts compound over time, leading to significant improvements in how we connect with others and how we develop ourselves.
It's a philosophy that truly has universal application. From our daily tasks to our deepest connections, micro habits provide a clear, achievable path forward.
And that brings us to the penultimate episode of the Micro Habit Revolution. Next time, we'll be tying everything together, looking at how to make this a lifelong journey of continuous improvement.
We can't wait to share that with you.
For now, start small, stay consistent, and watch your world transform. Thanks for listening. We're here to discuss how tiny habits lead to massive, lasting change.
It's hard to believe we're at the end of our series, Alex. We've covered so much ground, from the initial spark of an idea to building that first tiny habit. It really feels like a true revolution, a complete shift in how we think about change.
Absolutely, Lisa. And that's exactly what the micro habit revolution is all about. Remember, if you want to achieve big, lasting change, start ridiculously small. We talked about how the too hard barrier is often what stops us from even beginning. Micro habits break down that barrier.
Right. And the key to making them ridiculously small is the practice of making the new habit so easy that you can't say no. Just a couple of minutes, or even less, to get started. It's the gateway to action.
Exactly. And to reinforce that, we learn how to take any desired habit, no matter how daunting, and break it down into its smallest possible component. Think about learning to play the guitar. Instead of saying I'll practice for an hour, you shrink it to I'll pick up the guitar for 2 minutes. It becomes almost impossible to fail.
That made so much sense to me. And then we moved on to how we actually connect these new tiny habits to our existing lives. This is where you attach your new micro habit to something you're already doing.
Precisely. For example, if you want to start flossing, you link it to brushing your teeth. After I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. That existing habit, brushing, becomes the trigger for your new, tiny habit. It's like creating a chain of positive actions.
And that leads us to a really important point we discussed, the myth of motivation. We busted the idea that you need to feel motivated to start. We emphasize that when habits are small enough, motivation becomes secondary to consistency.
That's a critical takeaway, Lisa. Motivation is fickle. It comes and goes. Consistency, the act of showing up even when you don't feel like it, is what builds momentum. And micro habits are designed to be so easy to show up for that consistency becomes almost natural.
And speaking of showing up, it's all about reinforcing our wins. How important it is to acknowledge and celebrate every single time we complete our micro habit, no matter how small.
Yes, celebrating creates a positive feedback loop. It tells your brain, hey, this is good. Let's do more of this. It could be as simple as a mental high five, a quiet sigh of satisfaction, or really anything that makes you feel good about accomplishing your tiny task. This positive association is key to making the habit stick.
Then we started building our micro habit ecosystem. We talked about how to design your life and environment to support your new habits, not hinder them. It's about creating a supportive structure.
That's right. It's about making the desired behavior easier and the undesired behavior harder. So, if you want to drink more water, keep a water bottle on your desk. If you want to avoid snacking mindlessly, keep tempting snacks out of sight. It's about conscious design.
Of course, life isn't always smooth sailing, and we tackled debugging your habits. We gave you practical strategies for overcoming the inevitable stumbles and resistance we all face.
We all have off days, Lisa. The key is not to let one slip up derail your entire effort. Debugging means understanding why you stumbled. Was the habit still too big? Was a trigger weak? And adjusting accordingly. It's about intelligent problem solving, not giving up.
And this brings us to the idea of gradual growth. We explored the art of scaling up. Once a micro habit feels effortless, how do you make it bigger?
It's about gentle progression. Once you've mastered the 2-minute version of a habit, you can slowly increase the time or effort. Maybe you go from flossing one tooth to flossing half your mouth, and then eventually all of it. It's a natural, organic expansion, not a sudden leap.
We also spent time cultivating the micro habit mindset. This is about shifting your perspective to embrace lasting change and understanding that it's a journey, not a destination.
This mindset shift is crucial. It's about valuing process over outcome, consistency over perfection. It's seeing yourself as someone who shows up for their goals, one tiny step at a time. This internal belief is incredibly powerful.
Then we applied these principles to specific areas of life. We focused on micro habits for health and wellness. Think about starting with just one deep breath to calm down, or doing one push up before getting out of bed.
And we looked at micro habits for productivity and focus. Things like taking 1 minute to clear your desk before starting work, or setting a timer for 5 minutes of focused work. These small actions can create massive shifts in efficiency.
And last week, we explored micro habits for relationships and personal growth. This could be sending one appreciative text message or taking 1 minute to listen actively to a loved one. It's about nurturing connections and ourselves.
So, here we are at the end of our series. We've covered the foundation, the 2-minute rule, habit shrinking, trigger linking. We've talked about the importance of consistency over motivation, celebrating your wins, and designing a supportive environment. We've learned to debug our habits and scale them gradually, all while cultivating a powerful mindset.
It really is a revolution, isn't it? Taking these tiny, almost insignificant actions and weaving them into the fabric of our daily lives creates ripples of positive change that can touch every aspect of who we are and what we achieve. It's not about grand gestures. It's about the unwavering power of small, consistent efforts.
And the best part? This journey doesn't end here. The principles we've discussed are not a fad. They're sustainable tools for lifelong growth. This is about building a sustainable system for self-improvement, one micro habit at a time.
So, as we wrap up, remember the core message. Start small, be consistent, and celebrate your progress. Your micro habit revolution has already begun. Keep practicing, keep adjusting, and keep growing.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope these principles empower you to make lasting, positive changes in your life, no matter how small the start.
This has been an incredible series, Alex. It's been a privilege to explore this with our listeners.
Thanks for listening to the series.